but I think we're illogical if we didn't realize that a lot of Black people enjoyed being slaves.
Hello everybody, welcome once again to AfriPost. I believe wherever you're watching us from, you are doing great. Happy 2024 to each and every one of you. I hope you are enjoying your celebrations and you're having some good moments with your family and your loved ones. In today's video, I want us to look at the question of the position of the Black person in United States. You know, there have been a lot of talks here and there about slavery, about the challenges that people went through. And the question that many people have been wondering about is, do whites in United States understand the history behind the sufferings and the challenges that Black Americans have gone through to ensure or even to appreciate the state that they are in currently? Now, there is this video that went viral on TikTok about a lady having a discussion, and one thing that happened is that her understanding or even her position of the impact of slavery and how slavery happened really shocked many people. But then she was forced to come and apologize and put records straight about her comments that she was making. So I want us to watch this video. First of all, the video that she made first, and then the reaction that forced her to pull down her initial comments and apologize, and then again how other people responded to her comments. Take a listen and let's talk about it after the videos.
If we go back like a couple hundred years, it was pretty normal to own slaves. Is that right or correct?
Why are we talking about slavery?
Because I'm showing you why the ad populum fallacy is a logical fallacy.
Honestly, back then, a lot of Black people participated in the slave trade themselves, so...
Yeah, that doesn't make slavery right. Are you trying to defend slavery?
It was a product of the time, dude.
Are you trying to defend slavery?
Did you not see Matt Walsh's new video on this topic?
I did, and I think that defending slavery is cringe as
defending slavery, but I think we're illogical if we didn't realize that a lot of Black people enjoyed being slaves back when slavery was a thing.
Well, how do you know that Black people enjoyed being slaves?
I mean, it's just in history. I've read about a lot of Black people not only participated in capturing slaves, but a lot of Black people enjoyed being slaves. Because of course, when you're really? Brought up doing something like being a slave your whole life, it's all you know. I'm sure a lot of slaves probably enjoyed it and were happy because that's the only lifestyle they were aware of.
That's crazy.
Can you not think like that? Is it really that dense?
I have never heard of somebody enjoying having to work countless hours on a plantation, being dehumanized and whipped and told that they're not human, and being beaten within an inch of their life, and being
saying that
I don't think that people enjoyed that.
You can't deny the fact that there were probably slave owners that, just like there were really bad ones, there were probably slave owners that probably treated their slaves really nice too, right? You're not thinking logically. You're being so dense.
So I'm just going to say that in general, I think it's wrong to own humans.
Of course. We're not in that time period anymore.
But you're defending slavery.
I'm not defending it. I'm saying it was a product of the time.
You said that Black people enjoyed being slaves.
I think there were probably a good majority of Black people who back then were born and raised as slaves, probably because that's the only thing they knew. It was the environment they grew up in. If they had a slave owner who treated them well, they probably enjoyed their lives, a few of them. I think it's illogical to believe that every person who was a slave back then hated their life. I truly think that's illogical. I do.
I'm pretty sure that being owned is not a good thing.
Because you grew up in this generation and this is what you've been taught, and we know these things now.
No,
but back then,
not just because
those societal standards were not created yet.
Not just because I grew up in this generation, but because I can think logically and morally on this topic, and why it is unfair to own another human based off of their birth as having a certain skin color, for example. That's unfair.
I'm pretending I'm
illogical.
saying it's okay to own slaves now, because that's not what I'm insinuating.
You are defending slavery.
I'm not defending it. I'm just giving you the facts. Aren't you all about facts over feelings?
Yeah, and I believe that slavery is immoral.
Right, and I do too. But the fact was, back then, I think you're illogical if you think that some of them didn't enjoy being slaves or enjoy their lives.
Why would anyone enjoy being a slave?
That's the environment you grew up in. That's all you've ever known. So if you grew up in that environment and you have a slave owner who treats you well, that's just all they know. So they probably were happy about it. They didn't know freedom. Why is it so hard for you to understand this?
What does a slave owner treating their slave well look like?
I mean, back then, I'm sure some of them, I'm pretty sure they fed them, right? Or probably that they weren't whipping anybody or not tormenting anyone. Just I don't have specific details for you.
As long as you're working inhumane hours on plantations, but you're being fed, then that's a good thing.
Again, I'm not saying slavery was a good thing. You're not going to try to make it seem like that's what I'm saying, because I don't know what you want me to say. If you want to believe that every person back then who was a slave hated their life, go for it.
Kelly, Oh, Kelly, there was so much propaganda during that time to make folks believe that Black people enjoyed being enslaved. And during this very weird debate, which if you haven't watched it already, please do, because Naomi leaves no crumbs, you, Kelly, also say that slavery was just a product of its time. The only thing that was a product of its time is the ignorance in believing that Black folk enjoyed being enslaved because that propaganda was all they had access to. Today, now, when you have access to endless research, memoirs, cinema, there is not even a shred of an excuse for this kind of ignorance. Even in your apology, where you correct yourself saying you should have said comfortable instead of enjoyed, Kelly, may I suggest something radical, like instead of reading the headline of a tabloid article, you read something like Frederick Douglass's memoir. And when you do, try and hold enough empathy to understand the difference between someone who finds moments of happiness within the limitations of their deplorable life so they can survive it, and someone who actually has the freedom to enjoy a comfortable life. Because those two things are not the same.
Well, I think it's wrong to own humans.
Of course, we're not in that time period anymore.
That's crazy. I think it's wrong to own humans. Of course, we're not in that time period anymore. So if we were in that time period, would you feel differently? Would you feel that it is not wrong to own people? In fact, would you feel that it is right to own people? If you think I'm being uncharitable with this, go watch the entire video, because that is just the tip of the crazy iceberg that this lady is riding on. Good on you, Naomi, for not blowing up on this woman. I could never, but I legitimately screamed when this woman said that some people liked being slaves. There was a whole industry centered around catching runaway slaves that turned into the modern day police system. How the are you gonna sit there and say some people liked being slaves as justification for slavery? That's crazy.
Slaves. Is that right or correct?
Why are we talking about slavery?
So, I've been racking my brain for about 20 hours trying to figure out what is it about this video that bothers me so much. Is it the obvious answer, like the Daughters of the Confederacy talking point about slavery? Is that what? Nah, that's not it. Is it the white woman said something racist online? That's a Tuesday. That doesn't bother me at all. So what is it about this? So I start going through the facts. Okay, there was a debate a couple of days ago. This one clip goes viral. This white woman responds to the clip on TikTok, and then she has some sort of like back and forth on Twitter. And then there's another clip that goes viral that's showing the full context of the clip. And I've actually never even heard of these two before this moment, and I don't follow them. And that's it. That's the part that bothers me. I don't know these two, but I know this whole story because this moment is going viral. That's what bothers me. It's two white people having a discussion about black people, and we ain't even in the room for no reason. And it's going viral, furthering their brands off of the discussion of our labor. I bet you can't unsee it. You can't unsee it now. And the crazy part to me is that this white person thinks that they're like doing good, but they're not. They brought up black people for no reason. Not me agreeing with the white racist woman, but why did you bring up slavery? And once you notice this, you will notice that white debaters use black struggle as their moral baseline in a lot of their arguments. They'll talk about Jim Crow, Black Code, Civil Rights Act, slavery. They love talking about all of that shit for no reason. And it's a digital version still using black labor to further a white brand, still to profit off of it, even if it's just social capital, and y'all don't see the irony in doing that. It is mind-boggling once you notice it, because all I'm thinking is, this white woman, I ain't never heard of her in my life, but now she's saying something that is literally taught in Texas school books. Like, there's a lot of nuance to that answer that she gave that you completely ignored in her response. So that is wild to me, because like, you're not adequately equipped to have that argument with her, but you brought it up anyway, and all you did was you gave a white racist woman a platform, a megaphone, and virality a couple of times this week, and we're supposed to give you flowers over that. Black people supposed to just tap dance. I can't believe I'm saying this, but again, she was right. You shouldn't have brought up black people for no reason. I can't unsee it now.
I think we're illogical if we didn't realize that a lot of black people enjoyed being enslaved.
Forget about the adversarial troll. She's obviously fishing for the controversy that will end up paying off for her in the future. But let's focus on her message and where it comes from and why it's dangerous. Have you ever heard about the Daughters of the Confederacy? Founded 128 years ago in Nashville, Tennessee, they're still ongoing. Influential women on the south of the United States that managed to win where their husbands lost, which was in the shaping of the minds of the American South. Whitewashing the atrocities of the slave trade and its influence in the American economy, whitewashing the horrors of chattel slavery as somehow a fantasy in which genteel ladies with hooped skirts and broad-brimmed hats strewn with flowers somehow managed to own human beings and still consider them as family. This was in the textbooks of every single one of those adults that you see jeering at black teenagers trying to go to integrated schools and that are now members of the Senate of the United States, as well as its Congress. But Elliot, that's in the past, you say. Now is it? Look at what's happening in Florida nowadays. Look at what's happening in the UK. Look at what's happening in France. People are trying to rewrite history books for a reason, because it works. Now let's deal with my favorite. I think we're being illogical. Always remember something about logic. Something can be syllogistically correct and wrong, both morally and in terms of factual truth. You can turn any stupid, vile argument into something logical. Slavery in itself, at its heyday in the middle of the age of reason. The logic is not a measure for anything. It's an intellectual exercise that can be connected to reality or completely disconnected by it. Or it can be used to justify the unjustifiable, as it did with slavery. Oh, I almost forgot. Hello, Ziki. She also goes to say, a lot of black people participated in the chattel slavery trade. Yes. Who's benefiting from it now? Is it any black people? But further than that, despite of the fact that there's more genetic diversity in sub-Saharan Africa than there is in the whole of the rest of the world, when the Portuguese started the transatlantic slave trade with the help of the Catholic Church, they managed to summarize all of that genetic diversity into one skin color. So, from the perspective of the white people who were buying slaves, we were all the same. However, the people who were selling slaves viewed other black people as different people. So they did horrifying things and sold them into slavery, not because they were selling black people, but because they were selling the other. And where are those kingdoms now? Were they all crushed by the slavers who turned colonizers and stripped them of every single asset that they had and continue stripping them of their assets now? And my question again is, who benefited in the long run from all of this?
In terms of what I said about race, I completely, not only did I phrase it the wrong way and I should have said comfortable instead of enjoyed, I honestly shouldn't have said it at all because it wasn't my place. It was something that I read the headline out of in the Atlantic a long time ago and I didn't really read the article. I think I barely skimmed it and I should have because clearly it made me say something that wasn't accurate and now the internet thinks I'm racist. If you want to believe I'm racist, I'm not going to, I can't make you think differently of me. You're going to think what you want. But I shouldn't have said that, and I will apologize for that and say I was wrong, because clearly I didn't have the facts right.
Now, after listening to those videos, one thing that really comes to me is, do white people really understand how slavery happened? Remember, they were the slave owners. But then again, their descendants and their children do not understand how they perpetrated some inhuman activities against the black race. So when this lady is coming up again and talking about the fact that she misread it somewhere from an article that we cannot even locate, she talks about not having read it well, it really beats the logic because, you know, the question about race and even slavery and everything, these are some of the things that as people grow up, your parents can even tell you a story about it because United States is a country that is really volatile when it comes to issues regarding race and everything. So when you're interacting with black folks, when you're interacting with your other races, you will have a little bit of knowledge or you'll be told about some things that are there. So if you're somebody who is there to really make some research and understand a topic, before you come out and really show your ignorance and lack of knowledge, you should really have done your research. And I tend to agree with many of those comments that were made by other people reacting to her video. How will our children understand the impact of slavery and how it resulted in systemic racism within the United States? Because as people continue coexisting together, let's say you have white people, you also have black people. In United States right now, the society is becoming more liberalized, and therefore there is a need for people to appreciate each other. There is need for everybody to understand their position within the society. So if our children do not have any knowledge about our history, they will have a high probability of repeating it. You know, as they always say, that history has a way of always repeating itself. That is why you find that there are certain people who believe that blacks are minorities and there are people who are from lesser God. They should not participate, or they should not even engage in certain activities. We should talk about these things, and our children must really come out and be taught these things. And even to the white people, it is a challenge for them, because if you have a child who is really displaying this level of ignorance on important issues like racism and even slavery, how really will we talk about our country going forward? Because in the quest of ensuring that the society is really naturalized and homogenized to come together so that our people do not fight against each other, so that we have an equal society, we must be able to understand the society, how it formed itself. We must understand why certain people are able to do some things and others are not able to do some things. So for me, it is important that we really get to understand what is going on in our society. How can somebody come up and say that blacks loved being slaves? How on earth would that really happen? Does she really understand what she's talking about? Does she know what she's talking about? Because how can you love being oppressed? Look at the kind of conditions that these people are going through. How can you love being removed from your home, taken to another place, being forced to work without pay, being forced to live in certain conditions that are not worth living in? Remember even the question about segregation that came up after that. You have been brought from your country, taken to another country, forced to work without pay, and then being despised by the society. This really is something that hurts a lot, and because reminding us of this history is really something that we should really avoid, especially when it comes to people like her speaking without even understanding the topic they're talking about. I don't know what's your opinion here. Please comment down in the comment section and tell us what you think about the video. Do you really think it was right for the lady to come up and really represent issues of slavery the way she did? And then again, do you accept her apology? For me, I don't accept that apology, because how on earth would you talk about something that you don't understand? Let's get communicating down in the comment section. Please remember to subscribe to this channel if you have not subscribed, like the video and share. Thank you, and may the good Lord bless you. Goodbye.